This is a Reddit thread. This is basically a leak directly from someone at Riot. And just reading through it myself, I can tell that these are the actual patch notes. So I'm going to treat it as if these are the ones that are going to make it to live. And this is going to have the new champion select with it. So what you'll do basically based on these bullet points is you select your position, you choose two roles, and then once you get into the match, it picks one of those for you. So you figure that out, and you can display your pick intent uh, as you're waiting to pick. So if you're like one of the first two picks, you won't have to actually ban anything. But if you're in third, fourth, or fifth slot, those are times when in the past you might have been able to go get a drink or something like that, AFK, and come back and do your thing. Now you're actually going to have to stick around and lock in your pick intent. Otherwise, it's going to remove you from the lobby. And there's going to be some other functionality changes in order to keep lobby trolling down to a minimum. They mentioned they're going to do as well. So look to see a little bit of changes from them in terms of their attitude. So yeah, each third, fourth, and fifth person on each team gets a ban, and you actually have to lock it in. So coming in straight into these changes, they're giving Bard an extra 150 radius around the primary target once his meeps are up to that level. So I want to say that's at least got to be a couple of upgrades. So you probably need like 15 chimes for this to even be relevant. But once you do get however many you're gonna need, meeps now additionally hitting a 150 radius around the primary target in addition to the cone damage. Once Bard unlocks the cone attack meep upgrade. See, I think this is like the wrong way to go about making Bard useful. I think they could give him more utility. As weird as that sounds, I think he could actually have a little bit more utility as opposed to them giving him some straight power. I think he's just gonna continue to be like kind of middle tier, like middle to top tier. Only not top tier because not a lot of people are good at him. So I want to say like he's probably sleeper broken right now as full AP. So if you want like magic penetration and like some kind of off tank build that use a lot of CDR, and AP, I think that's the best way to play Bard right now. And he's actually getting to the point where his ultimate is actually super relevant. Brand changes. Looks like I don't like it how they call it a bug. It's not a bug. They intentionally changed this to where Pyroclasm would prioritize enemy champions. I think it's disingenuous of them to say that it was a bug because it's not. So it just means that when brand support ults you, it's not going to bounce 8 times between enemy champions anymore. It's going to actually interact with the minions how it's supposed to. If you remember playing against Brand any amount of time before they made this change, then it'll be back to how it was before. Caitlyn, less weirdness around using headshot. Caitlyn seems to have landed in a good spot post update. I don't actually agree with that. I read these changes and I was like, what are they doing? I don't think any of these changes are going to make a difference. Trap now is slightly better at catching small champions. Just a bunch of bullshit, really. Fiddlesticks, Dark Wind mana cost down. Admittedly, 130 mana at max rank was pretty absurd. So now it's going to be 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 for his E. That's the AoE portion that can bounce and also silences. Looks like some bug fixes for Jinx as well. The important one here is fix the bug where Jinx was receiving less attack speed than intended from Get Excited. So what I'm getting from this is that the change that they said they implemented actually didn't get turned on. Typical Riot. Uh, I'm not 100% sure, but that's pretty much what it sounds like. And then all the other changes aren't really that big of a deal, except the inhibitor fix. She's getting more than one passive stack after killing an inhibitor, so that was probably more movement speed than intended for sure. This change for Kalista just basically means you're not going to be able to stack a bunch of autos on an enemy champion and then kill one minion in front of him and never run and always be able to do that. So that was one of the things that was oppressive about Kalista when she's ahead. So this is a good change. It's not going to hurt her from being a strong carry. It's only going to hurt her lane bullying. So anytime you can preserve a champion's damage abilities, I think you preserve their identity a little bit better than mana refund is probably not core to her identity. So just having it still intact on multiple kills, it's not going to be the same even. It's going to be 30 mana, so it'll just mean she's got to stack up more autos on minions if she wants to get any of her ass off, and it'll be a lot harder for her to run you for free. It'll cost her more mana now. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. She'll probably still have plenty of mana in lane though. She's not very mana intensive on her own. No, the Kha'Zix changes are actually really good. Passive attack comes out faster. So basically it was his projectile speed was artificially slowed whenever his passive would proc. So they cleaned that up. W's explosive radius is up. That's also a good change because that's really hard to use when you're not putting an evolution point into it. It is just really thin. Really thin, and the explosion radius seemed really small. But the most important thing is E range being up, so just giving it straight range from 600 to 700, that's going to be like that much more likely to snowball. And with this having increased range, you might see people holding off on evolving it, since you won't get as much benefit from the range increase. So you could probably see a lot more Q and W max, or Q and W evolutions after these changes. And he'll probably be considerably better in lane as a result. It's not necessarily going to make him that much better in the jungle. I think Elise is going to be really strong based on the changes to items coming up here that I'll go over in a second. Alright, so LeBlanc, they're just trying to make it so she's going to be thematically healthy. They slowed her E speed down way too much before, and just giving it like another 150 speed is going to be really nice. It's going to make it so that she's still LeBlanc, and when she lost her silence, she maybe had a harder time fitting back into the meta. Simply because some of those matchups are a little bit harder now, and she feels a little bit too clunky with the slow E, so I'm glad that they sped it up a little bit. Misfortune passive ratio down, E damage down. I think that passive was ridiculously broken, and nerf is warranted. With people going back to Fervor Battle potentially in this patch for some AD carries with the precision mastery being nerfed, MF could still be really good with Fervor. It was just her Emax with Thunderlord's Decree was a huge problem. You can see it got nerfed at max rank from 310 to 220. That is a massive nerf. So you only see people putting 1 point in Make It Rain now. Since at rank 1 it only lost 10 damage, it makes a lot more sense to just leave it at 1 point now. By rank 3, you're only hitting like the level 2 value of the old Make It Rain, so You'll feel that change quite a bit. Mordekaiser, I don't actually think that they fixed him. If I actually do think that they fixed him, then I'll start playing it and I'll probably make a masteries video for him. So I'm gonna skip these changes for now. Riven, I think this is a good change. It's just gonna throw a little bit more damage into her kit. Like a lot of people don't realize, a lot of her auto attack or a lot of Riven's damage is actually going to be from her auto attacks. So if you multiply out the amount of increase on like a full build and over like 20 auto attacks is quite substantial. It's actually a pretty nice way to give her a little bit of power back without overdoing it. I think one of the most obvious mastery videos that I'll change will be the Riven one again. Originally I used Fervor Battle on her. I think I might still stick with Thunderlord's Decree, but with the Precision Mastery, I feel like I really need to update the Masteries video. I might just make an annotation and just say to go for the extra CDR now. I think that's a much more obvious choice to make now. But Thunderlords, again, probably mostly AP champions will stick with that. And any AD champions that sorry, any AD champions that took Thunderlords would probably go back to Ferocity now. Ferocity trees, keystones are getting better. And even if it's not on this next patch, then maybe the one after. So Rumble, Q range, and tick rate increased. Rumble's body is now smaller. Okay, so basically they're just making it easier for you to last hit on Rumble. And I don't know why they made him smaller. He was kind of big, so. Teemo, this is just a straight buff. The early ranks of his ultimate were kind of short range. It didn't really feel like he has a ranged ability now. But as far as team fights go, that's actually going to be relevant for AP Teemo or hybrid. He can just whip a shroom right into the middle of everyone instead of like hoping that they run into one. Yeah, with some of the nerfs to the other things in the game that were kind of holding him back, I think either the hybrid or the full AP build will probably come back. People will play it again. Trundle nerf. Q no longer works on towers. That's going to hurt solo lane Trundle quite a bit. Pillar's cost is up. R's cooldown and cost increased. So I agree with Subjugate being changed the way it is. Pillar's cost, I think that's going to hurt support Trundle more than anything. But that will hurt Trundle's ability to pillar spam in lane. So it's going to be a little bit less oppressive. It was basically like a free cast because how often do you really need to cast his other abilities, really? And with Subjugate having such a low cost before, it was just kind of like brainless gameplay. You just always cast your pillar. There's like nothing else for you to do. And Elise randomly won't drop on enemies you didn't want to land on. It was just when people were self-casting Elise's Repel, sometimes it would immediately drop down again, and this is the fix for that. I think she's going to be top tier. We'll go over that now. Because of this enchantment, Runic Echoes, Runeglaive is going to be gone, so skip through some of this. Basically, it's just going to be like Runic Echoes, or not. It's going to be like Luden's Echo, and they've called it Runic Echoes. So Amptome plus Aether Wisp and 340 gold with tier 2 jungle item, and you get Runic Echoes. The other big thing is that they're nerfing Spell Vamp on Smite. It's not going to have that anymore, so Lee Sin won't have as much cheeky sustain in the jungle, especially when he's going to invade. And this might hurt Elise a little bit, just because she does get a decent amount of AP and penetration, all things like that are good with Vamp. But I'm just reading through this really quick. Goal of Runic Echoes to serve all AP junglers equivalently or better than Runeglaive. Then Runeglaive either becomes another Ohm Wrecker or its alternative choice for a smaller subset of AP junglers that skews their balance on yet another axis. Question we asked was what do we gain by keeping Runeglaive? And while the diversity option for a few champions was nice, we trade a lot of clarity and balance to keep two items that should functionally serve the same class. So I'm okay with the change in terms of clarity. They want a mini Luden's Echo instead of like a mini Lichbane in the jungle. I'm sure in their testing that it ended up being like a more healthy game in the end. You don't have like some ridiculous Echo or at least just cleaning everything up with Runeglaive. Now you have uh, something that you can give meaningful AP to that's not going to scale into late game that well. So I like this change. Runic Echoes, just like Luden's Echo, is not going to be the greatest late game. It's going to scale better with penetration though, so I think Elise is going to be top tier for those reasons. And excuse me, the main thing is the mana return. Let me see that. Where's that? Hitting a large monster with this effect will restore 18% of your missing mana. So that's actually going to be really huge for quite a few AP junglers, actually. So they might be considerably better on this patch. Another reason why AP junglers would be really good on this patch is that Thunderlords effectively got nerfed harder for attack damage champions. It only really lost the armor penetration. The break-even value with the old Precision Mastery for Armor Pen is level 9. At level 9, it'll have the same Armor Pen as it had at level 1. And the break-even point for Magic Penetration is still level 1. So it hasn't changed at all for Magic users. So I think Thunderlords will still be pretty huge for those AP champions that don't want Deathfire Touch for whatever reason. I do think the Ferocity Tree will be picking back up in popularity, but we'll probably see a couple more small term changes. Nothing major like we're seeing on this patch. And we'll go through the rest of those changes here in a minute, but wanted to quickly go back through the balance changes. So Thresh, this is supposed to be when his souls are just like flying across the map. This is not supposed to happen anymore. Poppy, Q is more usable after charging when you use EQ than in quick succession. Your Q will like instantly cast towards the enemy, I guess. I kind of don't like that because it takes away individual outplay ability. And like, let's say you wanted your Q to cast in a different direction, and like Riot's new code is all shoddy and it wants to correct your hammer. I think that would be kind of troll. And I really wouldn't like that if I played Poppy, which I don't. But maybe Poppy mains will have more info on that. I don't believe this for one bit that they fixed Yasuo's one wall. So, just throwing it out there. Fixed a bug where Noxian Corrosive Charge was granting too much vision for the duration. There was actually a lot of spells that were granting too much duration, like Lux E. And I didn't see that mentioned here, so that's definitely not the only change that needs to happen. Fixed a bug where Heimerdinger's grenade was granting too much vision for the duration. Yeah, I'm sure that they just haven't found it yet, but those bugs exist on other champion abilities as well. Just some bug fixes for minions and their wacky behavior. Minions no longer freeze or awkwardly lock eyes with their minions. Minions now display how much bonus damage or reduction they have from the pushing changes implemented in 5.23. Minions no longer acquire new targets that are in the river or jungle. I actually did notice that change. That was actually good. Now additionally calls for help in a ring around your opponent when attacking your minions. I believe I saw a video on that where it was explained. It was like just basically saying how the old way the aggro system worked is like they'd lock on to something, and now it's more like a area of effect where they're going to be looking. Not really a major change. Those are all really stupid to mention, really, but this is patch review, so we're going through it. Rift Herald damage is down 105 to 95, so yeah, I found it kind of stupid. You could only really solo Rift Herald after you have like a completed jungle item, or if you're playing like some ridiculous early game jungler like Nunu, then you could take it out pretty easily. This is going to be a good change. Maybe more people will utilize it a little bit more, but it's just basically going to be like where before, if somebody took Dragon, nobody would necessarily go for Herald. Anytime someone takes Dragon now, it's just going to instantly lead to somebody else taking Herald. So, might see pro teams trying to control both of those objectives with AD carry mid lane. That is something that could happen. Even if they don't run AD carry and support in the mid lane or 2 AD carries, they still could run one in the mid lane. It is a viable meta. It usually just takes significant investment in mid lane for that to work, but we used to see that in the past just because mid lane used to be the lane that would scale the hardest. Cooldown up. That's actually really good that they did that. Cooldown lowered on the warding totem. Those both really needed to happen. You can drink elixirs while dead now, so it actually says that it starts ticking instantly, but the amount of time you have left to respawn will be added to the duration, so that's their kind of anti-spaghetti code fix that won't fuck them in the future. That's why I'm assuming that they did that. And for all the support items, they're just throwing CDR at everything and seeing what sticks, seeing what gets built more. Frost Queen's claims getting slow duration nerfed between like now scales between 2 and 5 instead of just being like 5 seconds of slow. Yeah, the longer distance Frost Queens travels to, the more it's going to slow as well. So I think this is a really good nerf. It's probably not enough to nerf this item just in the slow and mana regeneration. They're probably going to have to nerf the cost or some of the gold efficiency on it. Perhaps removing the gold pretend component completely for this to be a balanced item, because right now it's just too good still. That's not going to make people not build it. Sunfire Cape's getting like 5 free armor, which is good because 45 armor just felt like nothing. You can get pieces of a Thorn Mail without getting any extra health, and you would have been tankier than Sunfire Cape completion. That's how bad it was, so. Ranged champions no longer activate Ginsu's Rage Blade on the same basic attack that grants them their 8 stack. I actually didn't know that it was doing that, so that's just going to nerf ranged users of the item. It's not going to really hurt anyone else. It's barely going to hurt Kayle. It's not going to even affect anyone that would build Rage Blade normally. So That's kind of a weird change, but it's just for consistency. And they're giving Phantom Dancer 5% flat movement speed, and you're still going to have 7% movement speed when you're, what are they calling it? When you're in your special Phantom Dancer buff. We'd like to stay on the lower end when not hunting down dance partners, but giving back some strategic movement speed should keep it more than just a phantom. Yeah, so Spectral Waltz is what it's called. Static Shiv, bonus damage to minions is going from 75% to 120%. This is part of their pass for the Zeal items, making sure they're around the same power level. Static Shiv is still going to be the weakest out of the four now, especially since these other ones got buffed. Rapid Fire Cannon is slightly less good than it was, but it's still really good. I'd still put Rapid Fire Cannon and Runaan's Hurricane above Static Shiv for sure. You gotta remember Runaan's Hurricane also has the, I think it's 10 physical damage on hit, so it actually becomes relevant, and Static Shiv's magic damage hit every couple of attacks is outdamaged by Runaan's now, which is pretty strange to say that, but since 80 carries mainly have armor penetration too, the Static Shiv never really scales meaningfully. Not anymore, at least, since it's over nerfed. And Lord Dominik's and Mortal Reminder are getting 45% bonus armor penetration from 40%. Basically, 40% was negligible. I still don't think this is going to be enough, but it's a step in the right direction. And we probably won't get any more armor pen on this item than this, because Riot sucks in balance, but I'm predicting that they're not going to make it any higher than this, and they're just going to say deal with it, which I'm fine with, because you can still pick other items besides this. Ghost Blade is still viable. Tiamat cost down, that's really big. It was a bit too expensive. Ravenous Hydra's cost down as well, that is actually pretty important too. They were just being underbought, Ravenous Hydra as a whole too. I don't like Titanic Hydra, but for the champions that use that, this will also be good. Like Rek'Sai maybe use that pretty well. Death Stance is the item that I'm most excited for. I'm going to be building this on Lee Sin pretty much every game. You actually get quite a meaningful amount of ability vamp off of this item. It's pretty nifty to play around with, and 75 AD, that's pretty substantial. So this might be like a substitute item for some 80 carries on instead of BT. Like Sivir's gonna build Death Dance. She might also build Bloodthirster, but you don't have to. So your Q just heals for like so much if you use this on Sivir. And you just go for like Lord Dominik's, or even Mortal Reminder. I think they really need to buff they need to buff Grievous Wounds again before that item's gonna be relevant. I don't think there's any reason to pick that ever over Lord Dominik's, so masteries. Now, I'm really gonna wait and to go over this in some official capacity. All this is up on the PBE, but in terms of doing mastery videos, I'll probably wait until the patch after this one to reshoot all of them, and I'll just do updates to the ones that need it the most now, and that might be a couple of new videos, but probably not that many. Warlord's Bloodlust, less healing early but more early later. That makes no sense. Basically, they're talking about mid to late game. It'll be more healing than what you were getting mid to late game before. That's a better way to say it. attack speed up from 20 to 30%. Basically, if you wanted to do a full crit build and you knew you were going to hit 100% crit in your build, then you could actually reliably get healing off of your Warlord's Bloodlust Mastery. So I could see some champions opting for that route, but it's probably not going to be super OP because straight lifesteal is really strong as well. And Fervor of Battle going from 10 stacks to 8, I actually predicted this, but I don't really expect anyone to remember. But if you go back through all my videos and find it, it is there somewhere. Damage on hit increased, stacks decreased, so this is pretty much exactly what I wanted them to do with Fervor of Battle. I think it's going to be like a pretty good mastery again. And Deathfire Touch is actually going to be pretty interesting too. A lot of AD champions that went Thunderlords last patch might switch back to Ferocity for Fervor or Deathfire Touch. And Tryndamere obviously liking the Warlord's Bloodlust changes. Trynd and Yasuo. But now basically the damage just scales up based it on your level now for that mastery. AD ratio is going up on Deathfire Touch, and the ability power ratio is not really going up that much, so it's kind of a... I don't think that's going to be enough to get people to run Deathfire Touch, but anybody that ran it before is going to be happy with those changes, put it that way. Storm Raider Surge damage window is up from 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds. That's good because that didn't feel like it was enough of a time window. It's going to increase the number of possible users of Storm Raider Surge by quite a bit. Gain 75% slow resistance during Storm Raider Surge. I still don't think it's going to be that great of a mastery, and I'm struggling to see who I would use it on really. I think it's like it's one of those cheesy masteries you can run on Hecarim. Other than that, it's really like not that great because you're giving up a damage keystone for a utility keystone. That's basically what you're doing. And here's the precision nerf that we were talking about. Armor pen down, base armor penetration from 5 to 3. And it only gives 0.3 per level now. So in order for it to be equal to 5.5 armor pen at level 1, which is what the old one gave you, it's going to be 3.3 at level 1. And let's see, I think that's, yeah, it's a break-even point of like level 8. So this is considerably less good for AD champions, but all AP champions that used Thunderlords before are just going to be just as happy using it now. 2 armor pen to someone that doesn't build attack damage really means nothing, so you get more than that in hybrid penetration. So it's really not going to make a difference to anyone that's AP based. Strength of the Ages actually has an interesting change. Instead of restoring 100 health, it's going to restore 6% of your maximum health when nearby a siege minion or a large monster. So if there's no internal cooldown on this, is actually like a huge amount of sustain for tanks. So there's like certain champions that can just abuse it, like Mundo, Nunu, Shyvana, those kind of champions, and you just like use that extra sustain to never go back to base too. That's like another oppressive thing about it. Bond of Stone damage reduction increased, but no longer doubles. I think this is a good change. I think if they buff it any more than this, it's gonna be like like you have to pick this mastery. Kind of like Thunderlords was for last patch. So I really don't want to see any more buffs to this. If they buff it any more than this, then I'll start running it on AD carries. Like it's gonna be that strong if they keep going. And Howling Abyss, I'm not going to go through those changes. That is patch 6.1.